Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and now that we're getting ready for the Christmas season, it is time for me to remind you that my books make excellent Christmas gifts. So, you can get print copies from Amazon. Go to Amazon. They do the fastest shipping I am aware of. Go ahead and order them now for your friends, family, your loved ones, for yourself. Remember, if you need a last-minute Christmas gift, they'll get it to you probably faster than anyone else. I'm not the biggest Amazon fan, but I can't argue with results. And remember, if you really need a last Christmas gift, you can order an ebook directly from me, PDFs. And if you buy one for a friend or as a gift, I'll send you a free one for yourself. Just let me know. Send me an email and tell me you're ordering a book. And go to... really the easiest way to do it, SouthernAppalachianHerbs.blogspot.com. You can click on any of my books, click buy an ebook, and it'll go through PayPal, and I'll get a notification. But just follow up and tell me what book you'd also like to have, if that's something you need to do. And of course, you could do that Christmas morning if you've forgotten somebody. And, I've written about 16 books now. Actually, just finished another one this past week. So I'm really excited about that. I should be able to announce it at least by January. But right now there's books on herbal medicine, Christian topics, cookbooks, foraging. You ought to find something that gardening. You'll find something somebody on your list would like in my books. And of course, I appreciate it very much. Now let's get into this week's show. And we're going to probably talk about two plants this week. The first is Xanthorhiza, also known as yellow root. Now, this is an interesting one. It is native to my region. It is an American plant. Native Americans were using it before the settlers ever got here, and the Cherokee used yellow root in a formula for childbirth. Not exactly sure how, but they also used it to bathe the eyes, using the bark, a decoction of the bark, to relieve eye soreness. You could also make a poultice by wrapping the bark in flannel and moistening it until wet. For a sore mouth, chew the root or use an infusion as a mouthwash. Yellow root is an ingredient which is mixed into tallow to use as a salve for sores. So Cherokee made pretty broad use of it. Root tea was drunk for cramps. The root was also used as a dye material, the yellow color. And it was combined with Asarum canadense, wild ginger, Goodyeria pubescens, Alnus cerulata, and Prunus serotina as a blood tonic. They said take several swallows before a meal to build appetite, and the tea was said to be good for nerves, to soothe the nerves. Let's see, King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898 said the plant could be found on riverbanks from Pennsylvania to Florida, being chiefly combined in the mountains. And yes, it's fairly common where I live. They get into the chemical compositions and all that. I'm not going to worry about that. They said yellow root is a pure bitter tonic considered by the late Professor Barton to be superior to Columba. Columba. I think that's the way you pronounce that. Calumba. It may be used for all purposes in which other simple tonics are bitter tonics are applicable. Of Xanthorhiza, Professor Lloyd in the Drugs and Medicine of North America, Volume 1, very justly remarks that although we find Xanthorhiza most favorably introduced by the leaders of medicine in the early part of the century, and although it has been official to the pharmacopoeia since its first issue in 1820, it was discarded in 1880. It has failed to obtain a foothold. It has never been a favorite with either botanic or eclectic physicians, and is hardly recognized by them. In this connection, we must revert to the fact that although known to the eclectics and possessing berberine, that's what gives yellow root its yellow hue, berberine, same berberine you're going to find in Oregon grape, golden seal, coptis, etc., in nearly as great a proportion as hydrastis, that's a golden seal, they persistently refused to, in the place of that drug, asserting that its action was not at all similar. The investigations of Professors Bartholomew, Sattler, and Shoemaker, and others, now show that these conclusions were rational, as at least one of the very active principles of hydrastis is entirely absent from Xanthorhiza. He said, but still says it's bitter and forms an excellent tonic, so good for digestion, the liver, and all that. Medicinal Plants of the Southern Appalachians says that yellow root was used by the Cherokee to treat jaundice, hepatitis, chronic liver problems, and to heal persistent ulcers, and was also used as a dye for baskets. In Southern folk medicine, yellow root was considered a gentle tonic to improve overall health and a remedy for indigestion, ulcers, and heartburn. The root was decocted to make a wash used to treat styes, thrush, gum disease, toothaches, and skin rashes. That would again be the berberine that's going to help with that. It's has strong disinfectant properties. Plants for the Future said the root is astringent and a blood tonic. A tea made from the roots is used to treat mouth ulcers, stomach ulcers, colds, jaundice, etc. An infusion of the root has been used to treat piles, it's hemorrhoids. Though the report does not specify if used internally or externally, some caution is advised the use of this plant. The root contains the alkaloid berberine, which is used for its tonic properties and for digestive disorders. Berberine is anti-inflammatory, astringent, hemostatic, antispasmodic, immunostimulant, a uterine tonic, and antimicrobial. It stimulates the secretion of bile and bilirubin and may be helpful in correcting high tyramine levels in people with liver cirrhosis. Peterson Field Guide to Eastern Central Medicinal Plants tells us American Indians used the root tea for stomach ulcers, colds, jaundice, cramps, sore mouth or throat, menstrual disorders as a blood tonic, astringent, externally for piles, so we got that use, cancer. A folk remedy used in the South for diabetes and hypertension contains berberines, anti-inflammatory, astringent, hemostatic, antimicrobial, anticonvulsant, immunostimulant, uterotonic, also produces a transient drop in blood pressure. Berberine stimulates the secretion of bile and bilirubin. We already covered that. Yellow root was formerly used as an adulterant or substitute for golden seal. Through the 19th century, physicians believed its medicinal action was quite different than golden seal, warning it does have potential toxicity in large doses. Now, the next plant that we're going to talk about today is really common. I'm always kind of amazed when people tell me, oh, yucca doesn't grow here. Yucca grows most everywhere. Yucca grows from the coast to the mountains. Yucca grows from Florida up into at least into New York. Yucca grows in deserts. Yucca grows in the temperate rainforest where I live. There's probably yucca growing somewhere near you. Believe it or not. You just probably haven't seen it. Oftentimes it is planted ornamentally. So many different ones. Spanish bayonet, yucca aliofolia, something like that. Very commonly used or for ornamental plantings. My grandfather had some, and I can tell you for a fact, you can find that plant real easy if you're out, cutting the grass and not paying attention to what you bump into, because it has very, very sharp points. Also known as Spanish dagger, Spanish bayonet. There's a twisted leaf yucca, which is very pretty. I've seen that one before. Mojave yucca. Actually, a Joshua tree is a member of the yucca family. So, yeah, I think you can find these kind of odd when someone says there are no yuccas growing in my area, because I know there probably are. So I'm not saying they grow absolutely everywhere, but they grow in a lot of places. Okay? And you do need to differentiate. This is not the yucca root that you buy in the grocery store. This is not the yucca root that's used in, I guess, mostly Argentinian cooking. That's actually a completely different plant. I believe that's in the cassava family, and it's absolutely delicious. I mean, it fries up like potatoes. I mean, I'd rather have fries made from yucca root than potato any day. They're just absolutely delicious. And of course, they make flour out of them. It's used as a starch. Many, many properties of that. If you look at the spelling, it is slightly different. That's Y-U-C-A, whereas the yucca we're talking about is Y-U-C-C-A. 4 varieties are native to my region. That's Spanish bayonet or alliolifolia, whatever. Filamentosa, that's Adam's needle or beargrass, and Yucca flaccida, and gloriosus, I think, as well. Weakleaf yucca is what that's usually called. Adam's needle, beargrass, weakleaf, but the Spanish bayonet's by far the most common. Now, the yucca root you buy in the grocery store, as I said, completely different plant. The root of the true yucca, the one we're talking about, has completely different use. It's not edible. It contains saponins. If you take the root of a true yucca, cut off a chunk of it, and grate it finely, and then mix it in water, it will, I guess froth would be the right word. Foam or froth, like soap in water. That's what it's like. And for that reason, it's been used as a substitute for soap in water. But, as I think we'll mention here in a few minutes, the Native Americans used it for that purpose for one reason, but also as a fish poison. The saponins interfere with the fish's ability to absorb oxygen through the gills. So you can use it, I guess, in a slow-moving river, but it's really more useful in ponds and such, where you mix up a bunch of it, dump a bucket of it in the water, and the fish just float to the surface, kind of knocked out, and you can just scoop them up. Now, that is completely, totally, entirely illegal. I am absolutely not recommending you do that. It's not considered an ethical way of fishing. You're going to take a lot of non-target species. You're going to take fish of all sizes. You may, disturb the population, leaving not enough fish for the next person that comes along behind you. But if you are in a survival situation, I'm not going to judge you if you do that. It's still illegal. If the game warden catches you, you're going to pay a hefty fine. You may even do a little jail time, depending on where you are and what the regulations are in your area and who owns that water and such as that. But in a specific situation, yucca root, black walnut, there's several plants that can be used in that way. So good thing to know. Other wonderful properties of yucca. Well, the stems in the spring, when the stems for the flowers just start to come up and they're pink, they're fairly good wild edible when they're tender. The flowers are a creamy white. They're also a decent wild edible. To me, the stems and the flowers both taste a little soapy. They have a little bit of that like bitter, like hand soap type quality, the saponins in them. But a couple of flowers in a salad's okay. The shoots are actually a little better than the flowers. They can be cooked as a vegetable, like you would asparagus, basically. Got to get them when they're really small and tender. Now, I know there are people out there listening to this howling at the moon right now because I said that it's okay to eat a plant that has some saponins in it. I have been taken to task many times over this. First of all, The human body does not process saponins very well. They pretty much pass through the system unabsorbed by the liver. That's, for the most part, true for most people. So throughout history, human beings have eaten plants with low levels of saponins without any contraindication, without any harm whatsoever. Cattle and such do not have the ability to eat saponins without experiencing toxicity. Recently, I was talking about Japanese honeysuckle. Someone was very upset that I recommend medicinal use of Japanese honeysuckle and even culinary use of the flowers. That plant contains saponins. Saponins will kill you. This is dangerous. You're a horrible person. And they gave me their state website information, and their state absolutely did say that honeysuckle is toxic. Having eaten it all my life and knowing people that even make syrup and moonshine out of the flowers they use as a flavoring in liquor, I know for a fact that normal consumption of small amounts has never proven in any way toxic to me or anybody I know. But cattle and sheep and such, if they eat it, it will poison them. People are not cattle. Hopefully we're I always say the public education system is designed for two purposes. Teaching you to be slopped like hogs and herded like cattle. It teaches you to live by a schedule and to follow orders so you could be a good factory worker. The public education system was designed by the robber barons of the day, Fords and Carnegies, and I'm not specifically pointing them out. There's several of them. They actually purposely said, we do not want a public education system that teaches people to be entrepreneurs or free thinkers or creative. We don't want that. That is the absolute opposite goal of the public education system. The public education system is designed to make you learn to follow a clock, to follow orders, to do exactly as you're told, and to eat low-quality, unhealthy food and be grateful for it. And you're supposed to feel like you're privileged to take part in that. You think about everything you experienced in school. What was the point of most of your PE classes? Someone ordering you around and humiliating you if you couldn't climb a rope or something, right? Or dodgeballs hitting you in the face. Yeah, sometimes it was fun. Sometimes it's fun to do, menial labor, actually. I've worked some pretty lousy jobs. I've worked a lot of blue-collar and lower jobs, manual labor, and you get in there with a bunch of guys, and you start making jokes, and you all pull together and work, and you actually have a pretty good time. You should never look down on factory work or farm work, digging ditches even. Hauling trash. Trying to think of the things I've done, putting in fences, landscaping work. I had to work growing up. First job was, official job. I've been working on my entire life, basically, growing up on a farm and everything. But 15 or 16, 15 maybe, flipping burgers. Horrible job. Absolutely horrible job. And but I enjoyed it. At times I hated it. I didn't last there more than about a year, but it was very, very hard work. Anyone who's worked food service would know this, but I like to cook. So when they would put me on the grill, I was happy. I was happy cooking burgers and fish and chicken and everything. Where I had an issue was when I was on the line, the sandwich making part of the line. And this was a very, very popular, sort of a predecessor to Five Guys or Cookout or one of the nicer, burger joints. It was very popular, and we would serve 1,200, 1,400 people in the noon hour. And I'm not kidding. We had the drive-thru going, and we had dine-in service, and it was from 10:30, 11 o'clock to about 2:30 in the afternoon. It was brutal. You were just working so fast and so hard with a team of about 6 other people that you didn't even know what you were doing. And as soon as that would stop, I'd get like a 10-minute break, and then they had me go clean the bathrooms or scrub down, some part of the kitchen. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and just about everybody that worked there burned out very quickly. It was not like, I've worked in restaurants and catering and different things. Very different. This was really, and the boss was like a drill sergeant. I mean, you did not stop for a second. You were lucky if you got to go to the bathroom once in about 5 hours, And then, you had a lunch break, but they actually just gave you like a 10% discount. You had to pay for your own food, and the pay was horrible. And I mean, I remember like the first week I worked there, a big tub of mayonnaise fell on me, and it was all in my boots and all. I mean, I couldn't eat mayonnaise for a couple of years after that because I didn't even have time to clean up. I mean, literally, it was just keep your, get the stuff off your shoes so you don't slip down and fall, mop up the floor, wash up, get straight back to work, and I worked all day just covered in mayonnaise, and it smelled, and it was nasty, and yeah, I mean, it was awful. But as I said, sometimes we had a lot of fun. We'd be just working so hard, just like crazy. I mean, if you've ever worked a job like that, your body is moving faster than your mind can keep up, and someone starts cracking jokes, and everybody's laughing, and it's like, what do they say in the military? When you're going through hell, keep going. You embrace the suck, as they call it. Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for even the most grueling. And I've done, work on the farm and such that would probably kill a person, and I'm not even sure I could do it now in my 40s, what I used to do in my 20s. I mean, I remember I was talking with a neighbor the other day. His first job was putting on roofs, and 16 years old, went to work for a roofing company, and first day they're tearing off shingles. And he's got blisters all over his hands from doing that. The next day, it's bringing up, pallets full of shingles and slamming them down on the roof. And I mean, it's hard work. I've done that too. Gosh, I remember I worked for as a kid carrying sheetrock. If you've never done that, sheetrock is incredibly heavy, and you get up, so many panels off the truck. You and another guy turn it sideways, carry it in. No one tells you beforehand you're going to need gloves because the sheetrock will literally just tear the skin off your hands. It's so heavy and so rough on the edges. We're working with insulation and be covered with fiberglass. Anyway, in all of those jobs, I can remember some goofball and me just laughing our heads off to get through it. And there's really something to be said for that. But, you think about when you're in school, what do they tell you? Be quiet. Don't laugh. Don't talk to each other. Follow orders. Be in this classroom at this time. Be in this classroom at this time. You have this many minutes to eat lunch, and it's going to be garbage that they feed you. You have, I guess, a few minutes for recess. That's sort of like, your lunch break when you're working a clocking in, clocking out job. I mean, if you think about it, if you've ever worked one of those jobs where you had to clock in when you got there, clock out at lunch, clock back in, clock out at the end of the day, that kind of thing, that's what you're trained for in school. You're not trained to be creative. Now, if you're identified as, gifted or whatever, you may be. If you are inclined toward art, you may be. But most people are not trained to be creative. They're not trained to really solve problems. They're trained to regurgitate information, memorize information, repeat it back perfectly. And then there's really a lot of bullying, not just by other students, but by teachers. So there's a lot of, you're learning to work for a bad boss when you grow up. So, the public school system was actually designed to make unquestioning workers who would be good factory workers and do exactly what they were told. Or soldiers. That was the other option. So anyway, I mean, that's a controversial subject, but I can show you the quotes. If you get my Herbal Medicine for Homesteaders, what is it? Preppers and Permaculture People. Preppers, Homesteaders, and Permaculture People, something like that. I have a whole chapter on why people don't think for themselves because they were trained not to think for themselves. So anyway, if you're one of those people that cannot think for yourself And you have to go by exactly what the government tells you. Don't eat wild plants that have sap in them. Don't eat, even if it's very mild levels, like the yucca flower. Um, don't eat wild plants that may be slightly toxic, like poke salad or something like that. Do exactly as you're told, and enjoy your life until you develop diabetes, kidney disease, and heart disease following the um, dietary recommendations of the medical establishment and are on 27 different pharmaceuticals for diseases that your grandparents and great grandparents never even heard of, and suffering from the side effects of all those contraindications, and watch television and get fat and be very happy until you drop dead in your 50s. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I like to think for myself. When I was in school, what did I get in trouble for? Well, usually it was because I had a book. I'd either be staring out a window or reading a book and absolutely ignoring the teacher. Um, I passed my classes most time. I really didn't need to be there, and that's a big part of who I am and why I am who I am today. I was considered to be a very bad kid because I did not pay attention, did not want to be there, read, looked out the window, or got into trouble whenever I could. Frankly, I think the kids that get into trouble are a lot better off in life than the kids that don't get into trouble. I was thinking the other day, people were talking about, lessons they learned in school. And you know where I learned the best lessons in school? Cutting class. Out in the woods with a bunch of troublemakers, just up to no good. Those were actually the lessons that I actually learned from, for better or for worse. But anyway, so true yucca, Spanish bayonet, or bear grass, or any of these, does have some edible properties, but it is not the yucca root that you'll buy in the grocery store or get in an Argentinian restaurant with some chimichurri and some wonderful roasted meat. Man, they know how to do meat. I could move to Argentina. I could be very happy in Argentina. Good meat, good wine, beautiful women, chimichurri sauce, a yucca root. I would be very tempted to consider Argentina, actually. But anyway, they just got to get more stable politically. I mean, they're doing better now than they have been, but it's kind of been a really not good between Argentina and Chile over the past few decades. It's just like, they go back and forth between communism and military dictatorship, and it's just like back and forth, back and forth. Now at least they've got a chance. We'll see how it goes. Beautiful country. I knew some people from there, so I know a little bit more about the history of and the culture than I would otherwise. But anyway, I would be remiss if I did not mention the other wonderful use of yucca. The long leaves, I get fronds, whatever they are, with it has a spiky tip on the end. They are very fibrous. They make fantastic cordage. You could actually weave them into cloth, and many cultures have done that. They made their clothes from yucca fiber. What you do is you want to harvest the mature leaves. If you cut the young tender ones that are just coming up, they're whitish in color, you can kill the plant. So try not to do that if you can. In an emergency situation, I wouldn't hold it against you. But cut the leaves, and at that point, you can either let them ret, which means rot, essentially. Dig a hole, stick them in the ground, cover them up, come back a month later, that kind of thing. Or what I do is I take them and boil them. Boil them about 30, 45 minutes, let them cool, take the back of a knife or a spoon and scrape off all the plant material, and you're left with fibers. These fibers can be twisted very easily into cordage, and it is some of the strongest cordage I know of. I mean, you can make rope out of this stuff. You can make fishing line out of it. It's just fantastic. I use it a lot in basketry. I use it in a lot of things. When I hang a knife around my neck, like going to the woods, I want a knife ready if I need to cut some plant material, if I'm harvesting, or if I'm gutting a fish or whatever, I put a knife around my neck. And that's a yucca cord that I use there. My herb basket. There's a video I did on YouTube where I show you how I made my herb basket out of pine needles. Well, I made the strap out of yucca because at about a 1/4 inch thick, I put together several cords, twisted them up, ended up with like a rope about a 1/4 inch thick. That thing would probably hold 500 pounds or more. I mean, it's just really super easy to work with, really super easy to use, and very, very strong. And if you work with it enough, you can get it actually fairly soft. You don't mind it against your skin. It can be pretty rough if you haven't worked it, But the other thing is the fronds, the leaves themselves. Cut them at the base, let them dry a little bit, let them dry out actually, and you can weave wonderful baskets out of it. Real easy. It's called plaited basketry. You can do this with bark or palm fronds, but yucca is just fantastic. Be sure to take the points off. You don't want to stick yourself, but anyway, you can make great baskets out of it. It's just a very useful plant. But medicinally, the lumbies would tell their patients to rub the root of bear grass, that's Yucca filamentosa, very common in North Carolina, onto their bodies to treat skin irritation. 2 pieces or more were used for this medicine. The beaten root was used with or without tallow for a salve, S-A-L-V-E. I have trouble pronouncing that word. Salve to treat sores. Tea was suggested to treat diabetes. The Catawba, which is another North Carolina tribe, would rub this plant on their skin and body to treat general skin diseases. It's very interesting. I have not really used yucca in that way. If I get some kind of rash or something, I'll give it a try and let you know what. I would imagine it's the saponin content. It's going to almost work almost like calamine lotion, kind of dry things in. I would imagine. Like I said, I have not tried it. Plants for Future says medicinal use of Spanish bayonet. The fruit is purgative. The boiled and mashed root mixed with oil has been used as a salve in the treatment of various complaints. Purgative means it's going to give you diarrhea, essentially. I mean, if you're constipated, there are probably easier things you can use. Medicinal use of spoon leaf yucca, poultice made from the root, used in treatment of sores, skin diseases, and sprains. So it must have an astringency to it as well. Medicinal use of Spanish dagger, the fruit is purgative and the root is detergent. Like I said, it can be used as a soap substitute. Resources of Southern Fields and Forests tells us specifically of bear grass or yucca, or Adam's needle, sometimes called, Yucca filamentosa. A tincture of the root is much employed in rheumatism, and I'm told by correspondents in Statesburg, South Carolina, that in large doses it produces giddiness. That means dizziness. Now that could actually be the saponin content because you've got it in a tincture form, and that is going to be more readily absorbed by the liver. The statement should excite further attention to the plant. The Cherokee doctors use it in the form of a poultice of the roots or a salve as a local application in allaying inflammation. Peterson Field Guide to Eastern Central Medicinal Plants says of Yucca filamentosa, American Indians used the root in salves or poultices for scores, skin diseases, and sprains. Pounded roots were put in water to stupefy corralled fish so they would float to the surface for easy harvest. Could be used as a starting material for steroids. Very interesting point. Saponins. Let's go back to the controversial saponins again. Saponins can be used for making synthetic steroids. They're actually very important. If you went back to pre-1900, really before 1920s or so, basically all of your insulin was taken from cows or pigs, and it was natural animal-based insulin that you were injecting. Very unstable, went bad very easily. You would build up a resistance to cow insulin. You'd have to go to pig insulin. Things were not good if you were diabetic. Interestingly, though, at that point in time, only type 1 diabetes existed. That's true. Until I think it was the 1920s, no one in America was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes until Diamond Jim, I can't remember his last name, mobster, restaurant owner, weighed over 400 pounds, ate constantly, huge sweet tooth, ate himself into diabetes. And that's when type 2 diabetes was diagnosed in America. Now, kids have diabetes. Kids are developing type 2 diabetes because of all the sugar and everything in our diets and processed foods. that we're taught to eat in school, that we're fed at snack time, that we're fed at lunchtime, that really would not be a big part of our diet were it not for public education. Well, the discovery of plant-based saponins and then synthetic saponins led to the development of synthetic insulin, and now allows people to live a longer life, live a longer and healthier life without anywhere near as much trouble as they used to have. Saponins from the wild yam are used in the production of birth control pills. These saponins form a base for synthetic hormones. So, once again, saponins are not horrible. Saponins are not going to kill you. Saponins are actually maybe in your medication. But anyway, let's see. Says that root compounds are toxic to lower life forms. Yes, that's right. The same toxins, the same saponins in the root will kill cattle, sheep, rabbits, but humans don't process them very easily. They pretty much pass through. Yucca glauca, American Indians poultice the roots for inflammation and used it to stop bleeding. Used in steam baths for sprains or broken limbs, and as a hair wash for dandruff and baldness. Once again, the saponins used topically are a pretty common treatment for like eczema and psoriasis, so dandruff. In experiments with mice, water extracts have shown anti-tumor activity against B16 melanoma. One human clinical study suggested that saponin extracts of roots were effective in the treatment of arthritis. However, the findings have been disputed. And again, warning, root compound toxic to lower life forms, especially fish and reptiles and herbivores and such as that. So y'all, I think we'll wrap that one up here. As you may have noticed, I am quite the fan of the yucca plant. Though when I was a kid, I hated them, because my grandfather just put them like in every corner of the property. He really liked them. And I'd be out there cutting the grass, and I'd bump into a yucca, and it would just stick me about a dozen times in my leg. And they cut deep. I mean, they're like little daggers. I mean, they're really quite unpleasant. But boy, have I learned to really appreciate that plant. When I started getting into natural fibers and basketry and such as that, yucca, kudzu, things you never really think about using, are really good. And I would say it's a marginal edible. We'll go with that. Marginal edible. But the cassava version, the yucca of Argentina and Chile and all that, man, that stuff's good. I could eat that every day. I mean, it's really good. So anyway, y'all, have a great week. Remember, my books make great Christmas presents, and I will talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.